Okay, yeah, great. All right, well, we're going to talk about the proposed Method 320 changes. Method 320 is a method for FTIR analysis. Specifically for this presentation, we'll really be focusing on its potential impact on stationary rice. Um, there are other sources that will be affected by this. However, for the purposes of this morning, again, we'll focus on natural gas compressor engines primarily. Um, Whatever information we relay here, consult your own professionals or consultants. Get a second set of eyes on it, please. Okay, so background to this rule that could be tremendously impactful. March 1st in the Federal Register, the EPA published some proposed changes to EPA reference method 320. The comment period is active right now. We have up until April 30th to submit any comments that we would have in regards to the proposed changes. EPA was initially promulgated about 24 years ago in 1999. In 2017, the EPA started having discussions with stakeholders in regards to some of these changes. Excuse me, the source categories impacted by these proposed changes are as follows. Again, we're going to focus here on stationary rice. So stationary rice, the primary applicable regulations that are going to be impacted by this would be our Quad J and Quad Z regulations that come out of NSPS 40 CFR Part 60 and NESHAP 40 CFR Part 63. Again, dealing with stationary rice. FTIR over the last decade or so has become the primary analyzer used for stationary rice testing. A lot of this ties back to the initial regulations with Quad Z, where we were going to have to measure formaldehyde. I think that rule was relaxed quite a bit, and there wasn't really the amount of volume of formaldehyde testing that was required or needed. However, I think what a lot of the testing companies that are out there realized is that the FTIR analyzer is quite robust. It's actually better than many of the traditional SIMS analyzers, NDIR technology, chemiluminescence technology. We can do a lot of other work with the FTIR. We can collect a lot of other data as well. So again, it's become quite robust. In talking with one of the state agencies recently, they said even over the last 4 years, they've seen, whereas 4 years ago, there were about 40% of the tests that they were reviewing for stationary rice were done with FTIR. Now they're up to, at least 70% of those reports coming through are done with FTIR. So for the projects that we are doing, we're typically looking at NOx, CO, oxygen, volatile organic compounds, and formaldehyde. These proposed changes could have a significant negative financial impact on the natural gas industry. The reason is that we are looking potentially at method 320 being the only method that we can use to measure volatile organic compounds. In recent conversations with the EPA, they are realizing that method 25A using a flame ionization detector is a pretty terrible method to use to measure VOCs because you have such a high methane content in natural gas combustion that when you run through all the calibrations under method 25A, just with calibration error alone, you can almost wipe out your entire VOC measurement, or the inverse side of that would be you're doubling what you're actually seeing just through calibration error. So if they take away method 25A, which I wouldn't mind if they did that, I don't like using that method. I would rather use FTIR. If they take away method 25A and do what they're doing or do what they're proposing in method 320, they're also going to take away the ASTM equivalent, ASTM D6348 for FTIR analysis. If they take this away, this is going to be huge because I would say most of the testing companies that are doing stationary rice testing are using ASTM D6348. The reason is it's not as prescriptive. as method 320, some of the significant impacts is that under the new proposed method 320, you'll have additional requirements to show analyzer linearity. And if you sat in Robert's presentation just a few minutes ago, the FTIR is inherently a linear technology. You don't have to do a 3-point calibration on an analyzer. What they are saying is when you have very low concentrations for a compound of interest, you'll have to make sure that you've got reference spectra that will bracket your anticipated concentrations. That's not going to be a real issue, I don't think, on the engine testing. We have volumes of reference spectra available for CO, for NOx, for propane, which is typically used to calibrate for your volatile organics. We'll have to see how they treat VOCs with that. Proving the system can transport target compounds and analytes. So this is our dynamic spiking, our analyte spiking. Under the ASTM, you really only have to take a look at the native concentration of the stack and then do a spike on your system for your target compounds of interest. Method 320 is more prescriptive and more stringent, where you have to do a native, a spike, and a native, and you have to do that 3 times in order to satisfy the method. Not only do they want you to do that before you start doing your test runs, but the requirement in 320 says you'll do it at the end of the test as well. They also recommend that you would do it post every run. And if you fail your spike recovery at the end of the test, all runs are invalidated at that point if you didn't do a post spike recovery. I'm sorry, post spike recovery after each test run. Also, proving the absence of stratification within the stack. Again, Rob's presentation mentioned earlier that in 2014, the EPA revoked the ability to do single point testing within a stack. So the requirements now come out of method 7E, where you have to do a minimum 3-point stratification check across the stack. That is not what method 320 is proposing. They're going back to method 1 and saying you would have to do a 12-point check on stratification check for all compounds of interest. One thing that method 7E says is if you're looking at NOx, CO, VOCs, oxygen, if any one of those compounds or diluents passes your stratification check, you're good for all other compounds or target analytes of interest. The language in method 320 does not say that. As far as I can tell, they want a 12-point stratification check, and you would have to look at every compound of interest to make sure that you're passing. This is not a real issue on lean burn engines. We know that oxygen is very stable. We know that the compounds of interest, your NOx, CO, VOCs, are pretty stable. Even your formaldehyde, pretty stable on that. Where this could be a real issue is rich burn engines, where you see a great deal of engine variability. EPA thought of that. And what they're proposing is when you have a source of great variability, and they define that as from one data point, one minute to the next, if there's variability of greater than 25% from one point to the next, which I guarantee you will see on a rich burn engine, the option is to bring in a second FTIR and have that FTIR recording and looking at the native concentration of the stack while you're doing spike recoveries. Sweet. Thank you so much for asking us to put 2 $75,000 instruments in our trailers or whatever unit we are taking out to a location. Not economically feasible at all for that to be done. The other thing is that after each run, you'll have to do a post-run CTS check through your system. This is not required currently. Again, this one is pretty minimal, but it does add up time. So time is everything. What is the real impact here? It's going to be tremendously impactful from a financial standpoint, in that if they go through with this proposal, this would easily add 1.5 to 2 hours per every engine that we test. Okay, right now, every one of us that's in this room, and I know there's some other testers that are in here, we make our money by volume, and we make every effort to try to get at least 2 engines tested a day. This will not allow for that, and the reason is every vehicle that we're taking out to a gas plant compressor station, we are subject to DOT requirements, and we are limited by hours of service. So if we say a typical test takes 5 hours right now, if you're doing all of your calibrations, doing your stack work the way that you're doing it, supposed to be doing it, if you're getting your method 2 exhaust flow measurements, from the time you hit the location to the time that you're done with engine number 1, you could safely assume about 5 hours of testing. Okay. Every location that we go to on average is about an hour, hour and a half away from us. So you start adding up all this time, the emission analyst or technician, whoever's going out, their clock for the day starts as soon as they start up the vehicle or fire up the lab to get their instruments warming up. They're on the clock at that point. So again, if you're looking at 1.5 hours average to get to a location, get set up, you're out and back, that's 3 hours plus another 5 hours on location, you're at roughly 8 hours already there. You add another hour and a half to 2 hours there, then you're going to be somewhere between 9.5 hours to 10 hours for one engine being tested. You will not have the ability to jump onto another engine and get this work completed. I don't have a huge issue with that. I would love to have the logistical demands that are put on us as testers in the stationary rice space. I would love to see that be lifted a little bit. It's really challenging to go, hit, make sure that we're getting the volume that we need. But I don't think industry is ready for this. Obviously, if we can only get one engine a day, we will adjust as testing companies. We will charge more for this service. Again, if we can't get the volume that we need, prices will go up. So how did we get here? Essentially, we got here, we've seen a great dip in pricing for the services that we provide. And a lot of this has been tied to just limited regulatory oversight. And this has come in many forms, either due to a lack of resources, a lack of trained resources, and quite honestly, stationary rice, that category of sources, there are hundreds of thousands of these sources that are out there in the U.S. It is the largest source category. Going back to the slide of covered sources here, it is the largest category of sources that we'll see. So the states have just flat out said, look, we don't have the people power to review all of these reports as we'd like to. And for the state of Texas, for example, you've got multiple TCQ regions. Some regions have the resources that they need, but West Texas is just out of control with the sheer number of engines that are on the ground. Eastern New Mexico, same thing. NMED does not have the resources to review all of these tests. Get into states like Colorado, there's more resources, not the volume of engines there that you see in some of these other states. They do pay more attention there. Arkansas will try to get on location for every test that's done, but even again, trained resources is an issue, right? If you send someone out that doesn't know what they're looking at, you can have alterations to the method done in the field, and no one really is the wiser for that. So there's plenty of testing companies out there that do other sources outside of stationary rice that have just said, hey, we're going to stay here with our pricing, and we're just not going to go this low. However, through conversations, of really the pricing, this has caught the attention of EPA. This has caught the attention of a lot of the state agencies where they're saying, okay, there is an issue here where we have non-conformance to methods, and we need to pay more attention to that. Again, the ASTM method is more relaxed, less prescriptive. So what EPA is trying to do with the modified or the proposed 320 regulations is take the FTIR method and allow it to look more like their traditional test methods for 70 for NOx, method 10 for CO. And what it shows is a lack of understanding in the FTIR technology to begin with. We as stationary rice testers could say, look, we have done thousands, tens of thousands of tests over the last decade with FTIR analyzers. We can show you that we don't need to go to this level of spike recoveries on for these compounds on these engines. We have proved that the sample can transmit or carry these compounds from the exhaust stream down to the analyzer. There's no other test method that requires this level of dynamic spiking anyhow for these compounds. So why get so why get so strict with this? Again, we see that there's plenty of evidence of the methods not being conformed to, so they're trying to correct that, but I think it's an overcorrection. Okay, so again, we as testers in the stationary rice categories, we've used ASTM as the method of choice. We do have ample data that shows that that the method criteria can be met. So our comments, from our company, and we are working with manufacturers of FTIR. We will be working with the GCA. We'll get with these other organizations. Our recommendation would be to at least keep the ASTM D6348 as an option for stationary rice. The other source categories where you may be looking at other compounds that are difficult to sample for, that are challenging to get down to very low detection limits, that are challenging to ensure that they are transported through the system. Maybe method 320 and the revisions apply to those better. But for stationary rice, this is again the financial impacts, and then the reasoning behind making the method stricter. It just doesn't line up. We know that we can sample for these. The other thing that will protect us for a little while is that this method is cited in Quad J as being able to be used. It is cited within Quad Z regulations and a few other regulations as well. I know that TCEQ has written ASTM 6348 into 117. So as long as the language is there, we'll keep using this method until they revoke it or modify it. What EPA has said also is that while they're going to disallow ASTM D6348 for right now, what they say that they will allow it if there is a revision done to the ASTM method. I can tell you, as a former committee member to that revision, to the revision of that method, that committee has disbanded. There will be no updated ASTM method that will come out anytime soon. So again, this is pretty impactful to what we're doing, how we're trying to approach our testing projects, and we will again do our best to coordinate with other industry groups to provide whatever commentary that we believe will be impactful to this decision. So any questions, any thoughts on this? And a couple of other testing companies in here. Josh, I know we were talking about it a little bit before this morning. Have you guys dug into this or really run any analysis on what this might look like for y'all or for your clients? I haven't heard that yet. Have you? That's, I know it takes time for any revisions to be made. They would have to propose that as well. So again, we may have some protection from this, at least until those methods or the state administrative code is modified to reflect that ASTM D6348 won't be allowed any longer. This is what we're looking at. Pretty impactful, guys. And I'll say this as well. For the EPA to make these types of stricter requirements, my fear would be, and this ties to Robert's presentation that he did before this, is there will be companies that will adhere to the method changes and that will have to invest in equipment to adhere to the changes with all these spike requirements. method 205 and dilution of calibration gases is probably going to have to be incorporated into everyone's testing lab. We've run method 205. We have that capability to do that in all of our current setups, but that alone will be a huge impact for testers to make those investments. Again, my point is there will be companies that will approach this with capital expenditures and method adherence, and will invest the time and for the changes and for the equipment to do this. And unless that's regulated, there will be other companies out there that just will get away with what they can get away with, and that's going to be very impactful to those that are trying to do the job right. So if you're going to do these changes, if you're going to make this as strict as what this proposed language says it should be, then please regulate it. Make sure that you've got the oversight. Drew, have you guys talked about this at all from the agency standpoint? Okay. Is this on y'all's radar? Okay. Fair enough. We'll be doing some work with TCEQ later on this month, and this will be something that we talk about as well with the agency, because it's big. Any questions? I think we did well on time. All right. We're here. We'll be roaming around. If you have questions, shoot us an email. We'll be paying very close attention to this, obviously, and yeah. Thank you. I assume it's safe for me to. Hey, Rob, do you want to log out of here?
Now we gotta go mingle. Like we're single. What's the matter with these guys? Come run with us. I don't log out of this.
I see it. I think the best way might be just to open, PowerPoint. Oh, here you go. Oh, wait. No, never mind. That's the computer.
How am I logged in?
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
I'm out.
Okay.
I think. Cool.
Yeah, should be good. Thank you so much for that, by the way.
Yeah, no worries. Appreciate it.
Yeah.